You ever stop and wonder how the news manages to get such a strong reaction out of you? I mean, how does it crank up your anger or dial up your fear or even spark a bit of hope? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on those invisible forces. We're talking about a hidden blueprint, really, that secretly structures how we experience the world through the media we consume. All right, let's get into it. So it really all kicks off with this one simple question. We all watch the same thing happen, right? A protest, a new policy, some big global crisis. But then you walk away and you've got one person who's absolutely furious and another who's feeling kind of reassured. How on earth does that happen? The answer, and this is key, isn't just that people have different opinions. No, it's that they're looking at completely different designs.
Okay, just take a look at this. It's the exact same event, but two totally different headlines. Headline 1, it's all about chaos, disruption. It's designed to make you feel anxious, maybe a little annoyed. But headline 2, that one's talking about civic duty, about justice. It wants you to feel inspired, empathetic. See, the facts of what happened didn't change one bit, but the emotional reality, worlds apart. And that, right there, is the power of framing.
So, to really get a grip on this, we've got to look at what I'm calling the invisible architecture behind the news. Just think of it like a blueprint for a house. That blueprint decides the shape, the flow, the whole feel of the place, long before a single brick ever gets laid.
So what exactly is framing then? Well, the most important thing to get is that it's not really about picking and choosing facts. It's about setting up the conditions for how you're going to interpret those facts. It's like, imagine someone hands you a bunch of data. Framing is the difference between just getting the data and being told what that data means before you even get a chance to look at it yourself. It's not what you see, it's how you're told to see it.
Okay, so a frame is actually working on 3 different levels, all at the same time. First, it draws a cognitive boundary. Basically, it tells you what you should be thinking about, what's relevant and what's not. Second, it builds that emotional architecture we talked about. It's telling you how you should feel. And third, it gives you a moral template, spelling out who the good guys and the bad guys are. And the craziest part, all of this happens before you've even had a chance to process it for yourself.
All right, let's zoom in a little on that second function, the emotional part, because honestly, it's the most powerful one of the bunch. So how exactly do these frames become, for lack of a better term, emotional engineers?
I mean, how does a simple choice of words, or maybe a single image, manage to create such a powerful, gut-level reaction in us? Well, it's not magic. It's actually a very deliberate process of assignment.
You can almost think of frames like a movie script. They literally assign roles to everyone involved. They tell you who to root for by pointing out the victim. They tell you who to be afraid of by identifying the threat. They totally set the tone. Is this story a tragedy or is it a triumph? And, maybe most importantly, they tell you which emotions are reasonable to have. So in one frame, anger is the approved emotion, but in another, it might be sadness.
And this brings us to a really fantastic term for this whole process, the sentiment scaffold. It's just a perfect way to describe what's going on. The frame builds this emotional scaffolding all around the story. So by the time the actual facts of the event show up, there's already this pre-built structure there, basically telling you exactly how you're supposed to feel about them.
Okay, so we've got this theory down. We know what frames are. But what do they actually look like out in the wild? Come on, let's open up a sort of field guide and learn how to spot some of the most common blueprints.
First up is one we see all the time, maybe too often, the tragedy frame. So with this one, the emotional architecture is built entirely on grief and a feeling of powerlessness. Its main job is to present an event as a really sad but ultimately inevitable loss. And what's the effect on us? Well, we get contemplative, we mourn, but we're not really mobilized. We don't feel like there's anything we can do.
Next up, we have a true media favorite, the scandal frame.
This frame? Oh yeah, it's built on a foundation of indignation and that feeling of moral superiority. Its whole purpose is to pin all the blame on one single bad apple. Why? Because it's a super convenient way to avoid looking at the problems in the entire orchard. And the result? You get these short, intense bursts of outrage that burn out really fast. And the underlying system? It's left completely untouched.
All right, let's shift gears to a frame that's built almost entirely on fear. This is the crime frame.
Yeah, this one is powered by fear. It takes incredibly complex social issues and just boils them all down to a simple fight between order and chaos, good guys versus bad guys. And the effect is incredibly powerful, because when we're made to feel afraid, what do? We demand more control, more punishment, and a whole lot more surveillance. And finally, let's look at a frame that can actually be a huge driver for social change, the injustice frame.
The emotional architecture here is all about anger, empathy, and a real sense of moral urgency. Now, unlike the scandal frame, this one points the finger directly at systemic failures. It is unbelievably powerful for getting people mobilized and ready to act. But there's a catch. Constant exposure to this kind of frame can lead to some serious burnout and fatigue.
So, okay, we've seen a few of these frames, but why does spotting them actually matter so much? Well, it's because being unaware of this hidden design carries some really serious risks for how we think about and how we understand the world around us.
We're talking about 4 big dangers here. First, there's what's called interpretive narrowing. This is where a frame gets so dominant that it becomes almost impossible to imagine looking at the issue any other way. Second is affective determinism, a fancy way of saying your feelings, which were shaped by the frame, become your only test for what's true. Third, we've got identity capture. That's when you adopt a frame not because you've checked it out, but simply because it's what your group believes. And finally, system invisibility, where huge complex problems get squashed into these simple emotional stories that completely hide what's really going on.
I know, this can all sound a little bit bleak, maybe even disempowering. But listen, knowledge really is power. The goal here isn't to somehow escape frames. I mean, that's pretty much impossible. The goal is to learn to see them clearly, to become conscious of that hidden blueprint.
So with that in mind, here's your toolkit. Just 4 simple questions to ask yourself the next time you're looking at the news. Number 1, what's the emotional template being used here? Number 2, what would a different frame show me? Like, what if this was framed as a tragedy instead of a crime? Number 3, which of my emotions is this story trying to crank up to 11? And number 4, and this is probably the most important one, can I pull apart the raw facts of what happened from the emotional architecture that's been built around it?
When it all comes down to it, it's really about this. Being truly media literate today isn't just about being able to spot fake news. It's about learning to see that invisible architecture that shapes how we feel, how we think, and ultimately what we think we know. So the question we have to ask isn't just what happened, it's how am I being told to experience what happened? And you know what? That is a question that's always worth asking.